But the tears just started flowing out of my eyes.
And I was like...
And he's just like, what happened?
What's the deal, family? Welcome to another episode. This is episode number 4. I am Cameron, and this is my beautiful wife.
Aaron, what's up?
How are we doing today?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing good. What are we sipping on?
You poured this. Cheers.
Cheers. We are sipping on Josh Seller's
Sauvignon
Yeah,
Blanc.
Sauvignon Blanc. It's a white wine. It's an easy to drink wine.
This one's good.
Shout out to Trader Joe's. We just came across it at Trader Joe's. So.
Yeah, but Josh wine is actually pretty good.
Yeah, it is.
And Sauvignon Blanc is my go-to when we're out and I see a wine.
Yeah, you do get that normally.
Yeah, I usually get Sauvignon Blanc. So this is
or
good.
a Chardonnay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so.
He poured these big old pours because he talking about you always finish too fast, so I poured more. Because I be vibing, y'all. Okay. Anyway, what are we talking about today? Oh, wait. We got to do our this or that.
This or that.
So this or that. Would you rather be with someone who is extremely materialistic but has an insanely amazing sense of style? Or someone who couldn't care less about any style, fashion, or anything and was extremely unmaterialistic? Like a minimalist, pretty much.
A minimalist?
Mm-hmm.
It is tough.
Not to say minimalists aren't fashionable.
That's what I'm saying. Like, from that sense, I wouldn't mind that. But, dang, I don't know. I'm going to go ahead and go with, like, you need to be able to dress.
Yeah.
I like you to look cute. So I'm not saying I feel like minimalist is the wrong word, or is that an adjective? I feel like that's the wrong word.
Has no sense of style, but also isn't into things. Like, doesn't really.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the first one. I don't mind you being into things, and I also mind you
having
looking cute.
Yeah.
So I'm going with the first one.
Yeah. I would go with the first one too. See, still not one we can disagree on.
I thought you would have picked the other one, but
you did.
I feel like because I'm more like I'm not. I mean, I like stuff, but it's not like I have a laundry list of.
Yeah, but you have style.
Yeah,
I couldn't be with someone who has zero sense of style.
I think we are the same in that regard. So even that,
because even I'm not like super.
That's why I said never mind. Like when I just thought about it, so it's never mind.
Yeah.
I just think the things that you like, we get more often than the things that I like, because the things that I like are
$100,000 cars.
Yeah.
$100,000 plus cars.
Yeah, which.
So
yeah, working on that.
One of your things is equivalent to like many of
like
my
20
things.
Of your things.
Yeah. So I mean, I personally think style is really good. And today we're kind of cozy. If you're watching on YouTube. We have on sweats, but even when we wear sweats, we try to kind of make ourselves look presentable.
And my dog chewed up my string, so.
Well, you be letting her do that, so.
Maybe I'm bummy.
But yeah, so definitely somebody who as long as you're not obsessive. What I don't like is when people just obsess over designer and it's not even nice.
Versus the actual style of something.
Yeah, like you have no style. You just like it because of the name.
It has a big name behind it.
That's what I don't like about, like, if people, like, for someone who might be considered materialistic when it comes to fashion.
Yeah.
So if it was that, then I'll probably pick option B, honestly.
Yeah, I feel like.
Because I can buy you a little something to make you look a little like something.
Yeah.
You know? But for the most part, I prefer someone who has a good sense of style. And I don't know if y'all know this, but Cameron be picking out my clothes sometimes. So, yeah, sometimes I'm like, babe, I don't feel like picking something out. Or if I'm traveling without him, or even together, I try on all of my outfits and ask him, like, what shoes should I wear with this? Does this look right? What do you think? So he definitely has a good eye for clothes and just putting outfits together.
Yeah. I'm pretty decent at it, I think.
Yeah, you are. But anyway, what are we talking about today?
Today, we are talking about the idea of marriage versus actually being ready to be married. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on that?
That sounds deep.
Is it? Yeah, it is kind of. Maybe, yeah.
I think that marriage is very commercialized, and at the core, it is like an institution that is, biblically rooted.
Yeah.
But I think that most of the time our perception of marriage is based off of all of the things that we see around marriage, like the wedding and all of the frills, the dress, the people watching you walk down the aisle,
the proposal,
all of the things that surround marriage have nothing to do with once you're actually married. Yeah. All of this stuff is the things that happen before you get married.
Yeah.
And once you're married, you're left with trying to figure out life with someone. And for the most part, a lot of the people who were there at the wedding are just like back to their normal lives and doing their normal thing, which that's fine. But I just think in general, the idea of marriage is rooted in all of the extras that actually don't have anything to do with marriage.
Yeah.
So when we decided that when I knew I was ready to be married, it was more of I felt like we had proven to each other that we were committed, and that we had proven to ourselves individually that we love ourselves, our individual selves, and that we think together we are even better. You know, I know that before we decided that we were ready to be married, we did a lot of work up front to hopefully make our marriage a lot easier, which I think we did a pretty good job at. But what do you think is the difference between being ready for marriage and the idea of marriage?
What do I think the difference is? I think the difference is, you kind of said it. I don't think there's a definition that I have, but I think it's the love for your individual self versus the love that you think that you have from a together standpoint. I think that it's the thrill of a wedding versus do you even have to have a wedding to make the marriage whole? A lot of times, many of us, we kind of think that marriage is the wedding. And then after 6 hours or 4 to 6 hours, your marriage begins, and then it's like, okay, what's next? So it's, and even for us, like if you take our story to getting married, we didn't have the wedding that we wanted. I would even say that you wanted. The wedding that you wanted is the wedding that I wanted. So it's not like I had this idea of a wedding. Yeah. But you know what I'm saying? So we weren't able to have even that. And in that journey, I think too, I might have been a little bit harder in some.
Yes. So wait, I need to tell the story. Okay. So we're sitting, this is during the pandemic because after, I don't know, July.
This is like July.
At like August. July, we were basically coming to the conclusion that our December wedding needed to be canceled.
Okay, wait, let's give them the theme real quick. So her maiden name is Winters and my last name is White. So our theme going in, she wanted this since before we even got engaged. So she was like, I want this white wedding, and the theme of our wedding, it was
this winter's white was our hashtag.
Yeah, so it was just like the perfect time. I want this New Year's wedding, this elegant thing, and we always did things together on New Year's Eve, which we'll get into that because that's what kind of led to a wedding in the first place.
Yeah. So we had all of that figured out. We reserved the venue. Yeah. And then COVID hit. And I had already picked out my dress. Like, things were moving. Yeah. And COVID hit, and then we were like, well, our wedding is in December. COVID started hitting in March. So we were like, we should probably be good by then. Because they were anticipating like a few weeks, and we were going to be back to normal. Well, we all know that didn't happen. So come July, like midsummer, we're like, we're going to have to cancel. This is not going anywhere. It's getting worse.
I said we're going to have to cancel. Yeah. Them words was not coming out your mouth.
Yeah, so once we realized that, we're like, okay, what are we going to do? Like, and honestly, through that whole conversation, I was okay. Like, it wasn't like I was having these breakdowns or...
There was only one breakdown.
Yeah. So then once we decided, after we had decided that the wedding had to be canceled, we're at this restaurant that we have been going to throughout our entire engagement. And we're sitting there and we're having a conversation, and Cameron was more on the side of, let's just wait until our house is done, because we were building our house at the time. And he's like, if we do it if we pick a date, like there's no telling if our house will be done. So, and we didn't want to live together before we got married. But he's like, it's no telling if our house will be done. So we could potentially be getting married before our house is done, which we were both living with our parents at the time, which, that was like, who wants to get married and then go back to their parents' house?
Yeah.
But
Actually,
anyway,
your parents were living with.
Yeah, and my parents weren't even living at their
they had
own
just
house
sold their
because they had
house.
sold their house and were building their current house.
Yeah.
So they were even in transition. But point is, we were sitting at this restaurant and I'm like, okay, so what are we gonna do? And we're in this like affluent neighborhood in Michigan, and some kind of car. It was probably a Porsche 911 or something.
It was a Ferrari.
Okay, it was a Ferrari.
Yeah.
I'm not facing the street. Cameron always faces the street when we're in this area because he likes to look at the cars because he's obsessed with cars, as we've already gone through. And I'm trying to talk to him about what the plan is. I'm like starting to get kind of emotional because I'm like, okay, it
was settling in that you weren't gonna have
like
the
what I
wedding
thought we were gonna have is just not happening.
Yeah.
So what are we gonna do? I'm talking to him and I just see his eyes.
But no, wait, you're missing. I'm just straightforward. I said we're not having a wedding. Like we can either wait till the house is done and we do something in the in the house.
Yeah. Or, with just our immediate families. That's what you said.
Yeah. Or we just like do nothing because like we have no control. So I'm thinking I'm on more of the side of like our reality in that time is like we have no control over any of this. So I'm cool. I'm thinking we just at dinner. Again, this kind of goes back to that that time we almost broke up.
Yeah.
Now we wasn't about to break up.
I'm also pretty good at like remaining calm.
But it was different because that's something that you've been looking for your entire
So
life.
Not too much stuff just gets me like up in arms in general.
Yeah.
But he's telling me this and I'm about to make my little response and I just see his eyes go from my eyes to a car and he's just like and I lost it.
Well, not lost it. You started crying.
It was like a burst out crying. Yeah. Well, yeah, it wasn't like hyperventilating cry, but the tears just started flowing out of my eyes.
And I was like,
and he's just like, "What happened?" And I just in that moment, I'm like, where he diverted his attention, and I was like really trying to like get whatever I had to get out. I was just like, it was just the tipping point. So I really just burst out crying at this table. And Cameron's like, Aaron, like, they're going to think I'm like
doing something
crazy to you. But it was fine. But at that point, we were like, okay, I told him, I'm like, I did not get this dress for nothing. And I'm also not wearing this dress just in front of our parents and siblings. So we're going to have to make the best out of whatever it is. And I personally feel like the COVID experience allowed us to understand that our marriage is always the first priority.
And that's what I made important at the moment. Yeah. I did say like my bad, but like, it's not, if you want to celebrate, I don't know, down the line, we can do that. But like, it's just not in our control. Like I was trying to make that clear. I'm like, I understand that you want a wedding. I do. And I want you to have this wedding. But at the end of the day,
it's just not. It's not gonna happen.
It's not gonna happen. Like you're not.
And like the venue that we were gonna do it at, they were like, "Well, we have tables, and then on the dance floor we'll mark circles. So then the people at the table should be per household, and they stand in that bubble on the dance floor together." And I'm just like, "Yeah, no, that's just not gonna work because who's about to be doing all of that?" So we decided to just get married at Cameron's aunt and uncle's house. Well, now both of our aunt and uncles, but like. It was just so beautiful. We'll post wedding pictures on our Sips of Success page. But I personally think that experience made us, like, it helped set the foundation for our marriage because we really worked through that. And it wasn't like it was a hard challenge for us, but it definitely was something that we did not expect to go through. Especially at the time that we got engaged.
Yeah, you have this beautiful proposal. You have like you're excited to then have this wedding, and then the wedding part is just stripped.
Shattered.
It's like stripped from you. Like you no longer have the opportunity, not because of anything that you've done per se, but because like the world is in shambles at this time. So
exactly.
For me, for me, and I think a lot of guys from a financial standpoint, I'm thinking like, bet.
Yeah.
Like I ain't even gonna hold it. I'm like, cool. Like
But
we
our
straight.
wedding, I wouldn't say that it cost what it would have cost if we had the
I
big
did
wedding.
allow her
But
to
he
do
was like,
whatever
okay,
you
babe.
want
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, it
He
wasn't
gave
going
me
to
the
be.
green light for pretty much
I didn't
whatever
even
I wanted.
ask. Whatever she said she wanted, I said yeah.
Yes. And it turned out to be absolutely beautiful,
Yeah.
very intimate. We had a great time. But I think going back to what we were saying about the idea is when you have this idea of how something should unfold, a lot of times, most times in life, it just doesn't happen that way.
Yeah.
And I think that's the issue with setting expectations for things like a proposal or things like a wedding. It's like if you kept your eyes on what
The actual goal.
yeah, what the actual goal
Yeah.
is, when things like that come up, it's not as hard to get through because you already know like we're in this for the long run. Like this is something, it's bigger than the occasion. And I even think too, there are people who will be like, well, I don't really care about a wedding. There are a lot of women who don't care about weddings.
Yeah.
So in that case, what do you think is the difference between the idea of marriage versus like the actual marriage? You know what I mean?
I think you okay, so you may not be into it, but you also may have not done the work. You still may think that you're just simply supposed. I can't speak for everybody, but I would just even say from like types of families that we've come from, where it's like this, you get this picture painted like when you get older, you're supposed to get married, then you have some kids, and that's kind of like the end of the story in a way.
Yeah.
Like the rest of the story is not really painted. Like the things that you're supposed to do to sustain a life, and a marriage is not completely painted, in my opinion. But I think it's just that, like, most people are kind of told just that, like, when you get older, you need to get married and you're gonna have some kids, and then you just live your life. Like, there's no in between. There's no like crevices that you're in. So I think it still can apply to those who even don't want like this extravagant wedding or a wedding at all. I think it's just still like clinging on to the idea that when I get older, I need to get married.
So I think it would be good for us to talk about then how we prepared for actual marriage.
Okay, so in my opinion, I think that getting ready for marriage, like, so Aaron was ready for marriage, and I could see that, but that didn't mean anything if I wasn't. I think when you're getting ready, then both need to be on the same page with being ready for marriage, but also in my opinion, but from my perspective as the guy, you need to kind of lead the path into, okay, now what does this look like? And it's not you making the decisions, but it's you kind of opening the discussion. Like, okay, what is this going to look like for us? Like, how are we going to operate in a marriage? Like, what will 1, 2, and 3 look like? So I think I was like 21. I was in this men's Christian group, and I was like the second youngest. But a lot of the guys had the same doggone story. It was kind of like, yeah, we got married, had kids. My wife abandoned me basically because she just loved the kids so much, or it was kind of like had down times, finances was terrible. It was like all these same scenarios, and or we got into it and we didn't know how to get out of it. Some end up in divorce, some like suffered for like 20 years and then became too old and just said like whatever, basically, like we here now, so
Yeah,
I hate you, you hate me. We gonna live in the same house. You know,
Yeah.
we roommates at this point. So like, just to kind of give like a basic level preview of that. But I decided at that moment that if and when I get married, like I'm not gonna have the picture of what they're painting marriage to be. So when me and Aaron got to that point in life, I just started, we talking about everything. I asked her, one of the first things was definitely like, if we have kids, like what is your idea of it? Because I do understand like moms will teach their daughters that, oh yeah, when you have kids, it's all about your kids. Mm-hmm. And I listen to those guys, I'm like, I ain't going through that. Like at the end of the day, I'm first and you first. Yeah. So like, what's your picture of that? Like, what does that look like? You know? And that kind of opened up the door. That was like one of the first questions, but that opened up the door to like a lot of other dialogue on what we wanted marriage to look like. And through that year of like a whole bunch of questions and reading like all these different books and like just having different conversations based on like topics, scenarios. One of the ones that's easy to remember is the what were we reading?
His needs, her needs.
Yeah,
his needs, her needs. Such a good book.
And the I think the woman wasn't getting what she needed at home, and then a guy at work or something like that. Someone's work.
It was
customer.
like intimacy versus sex, like how women need intimacy and men need sex.
Yeah.
And the book is not to say that the other
doesn't
need those things, but in terms of a priority, like that takes precedence. And so we got to really understand and like ask questions, and even the book had a lot of questions in it that we were able to work through together and talk about. And I just think we were extremely intentional.
Yeah. Like, and again, it's not to say that what we did is right. It's just to say that based on experience and getting to that point, paying attention to those who we weren't inspired by.
Yeah.
And I would say we've been inspired by different other couples or whatever, and taking and learning from some of what they've done. But a lot of times in the world, and that's even why another reason why we even started this podcast is to kind of change the narrative of what marriage actually is. Like a lot of times we get asked first, like, so what are your challenges? What's so hard? Like, it's so difficult. Like, what's
part about marriage?
Why it got to be hard? Yeah. Like, so it's just like that. Just kind of proves there is a idea versus you actually being ready. I just think when you do the work individually and then understanding what it looks like for the two, it's like can be up from there.
Yeah.
But I think whatever the work looks like for you is what you have to, like, she has to agree and then he has to agree on what that is.
And that really just sets the standard for your relationship moving forward, like your marriage. Because the tough questions, which don't even have to be tough, but just the questions, they will never stop.
I think the questions are tough because the world has made them tough.
Exactly.
Instead of normalizing
asking
regular situations that everybody is going through.
And it's like questions that you should be clear on, like even how many times a week would you prefer to have sex, or like how many, like
every day.
What if one of our parents has to move in with us, or like both of our parents needs to move in with us? Like, how would you feel about that? Or, what way do you want to punish kids? Or like, those types of things are important to ask, and being intentional with your answers too, and actually taking time to think about those things. Like, what does an ideal day for you look like? Or where do you see your future?
Yeah.
And it shouldn't just be the woman initiating all of these types of conversations. The woman should not be the only one who cares about the future of the relationship.
And that's something else that I was intentional about. I feel like I heard her multiple times up to this point that she, I guess, been the initiator in many ways. And I was very intentional by the time I got to the space to, lead into marriage that, no, I'm going to lead all of this. Mm-hmm. And it's just certain things. Women got powers, but men got powers too. Like, you use them how they are. I'm just on the side of, I get it. Yes, are you skilled at a lot of things? Yes. Am I skilled at things? Yes. Just some things you better skilled at and some things I'm better skilled at. Yeah. And it's just like we have to accept those abilities. It's just simple as that. It's not to say that you can't do what I can do. It's not to say that I can't do. What I can't do is push out a baby. Now, that's one thing I can't do. but I'm, you know what I'm saying? It's just like you have to accept what is. Like the reality is that you're a woman, I'm a man. Like at the end of the day, we have some things that are that naturally come to us.
Yeah.
So we got to let that be what it's going to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just more on the side of I understand why you want to be married first, and then if you're with someone, I understand why y'all want to be married. But also, it's important to understand why he or she wants to be married. Like who's on the other side? Yeah. Like get their point of view. Does it line up? If it lines up, now why do we want to be married? What does this look like? And it also leads to after I propose this, why the entire year from January 1st to November 14th, I wrote a note for each day of the year leading up to that day. Like this is what it can potentially look like. Obviously we don't live together yet, but this is like a idea of what it can be. Yeah. So I just wanted to paint that picture, and like I was just intentional about, okay, this is what a marriage could look like for us.
Yeah.
And your marriage is yours. It's not anybody else's. It's not what you hear. Like you have to make your marriage yours. So
Yeah, he literally is a psychopath and wrote like a mini excerpt from each day of the entire year, from the morning he realized he wanted to marry me to the day he proposed.
yeah,
And then gave it to me the day after he proposed,
yeah.
when he picked me up from the hotel.
The next morning.
And I literally sobbed because it just showed me to how much you cared and how much you wanted for us, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that, I mean, we can talk about this another day,
Yeah.
but just your thoughts on how you know, like, that a man is actually leading you, or as a woman, if you're pulling him along, you
Yeah.
know? Because I think a lot of times people fall
and
into marriage.
are you coercing him, or are
Yeah.
you forcing him, or are you
Yeah.
trying to put him into situations to get what you want?
Exactly. Like what are the motives, you know?
Yeah.
Because those little nuances, although they can be very deceiving in the moment, are very
Important.
They are very important
Yeah.
as your relationship grows.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm just thankful that we have a good understanding on the difference between what marriage really is and versus the idea, because we have been married for a few years now, and I think that the work we did up front is what allows us to say marriage doesn't have to be hard.
And it's amazing.
Be fun. It can be
Yeah.
amazing. It can be inspiring and just all those beautiful things. And you don't have to live through the narrative that other people have lived through in their own marriages. You
Yeah.
can create your own. So
Yeah, and I think we can end off on the fact that too, when you're married, it's not a he versus she. It's a we thing. Like, life is already hard. Things can already happen, are going to happen. But I think when you have the understanding that it's a we thing, no matter what the situation
Yeah.
is, then the
and that
sky's
was
the limit.
honestly one of the first times that I realized, like, okay, he's actually getting there, because he would start saying we all the time, like,
Yeah.
when we get married, or when we do this, or when we do that.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, dang, not him saying we.
But
first.
I didn't notice that I was saying we though, for sure. Like, for it, I don't know who pointed it out, but like we
Pay
got
attention, ladies.
It was like a moment. It was like we've been saying we a
Right.
whole bunch.
Exactly.
But anyway, that is the end of this episode.
Yes, please leave us a review
yeah.
on Spotify, on iTunes. Even if you're watching on YouTube, it would mean so much to us if you just left us a positive review.
Yeah.
And then also feel free to leave us questions in the Sips of Success DM or in our email. We'll leave it in the show.
Or if you just have feedback on the topic of, are you more on the side of, have you been on more of the side of like the idea of, or are you, even if you're married, are you actually ready, or whatever? What are your thoughts on that? So
yes. Well, anyway.
If you rock with me, then you rock with us. I hope you enjoyed this. We'll see you in the next one.